Hello dear primary 4 students. In our first lesson in concept 2 titled about fuels عن الوقود. Surely when you heard the word fuels, you remembered that we talked about using fuel to generate energy in the get started activity. خليني أفكركم بجزء من المعلومات اللي قلناها. When fuel is burned, it gives energy, so we can use it to power devices, to cook food, to make us feel warm. During the second concept, we will know more information about fuels, its sources, different types, and uses in our daily life. في المفهوم التاني هنعرف معلومات أكتر عن الوقود، مصادره، أنواعه المختلفة، وكمان استخداماته في حياتنا اليومية. Now, get your tools and open your science book on page 26 to read the key vocabulary together. ال key vocabulary هم إيه؟ Fuels, fossil fuels, generate, conserve, renewable, non-renewable, renewable resource, pollution. بمعنى fuel اللي هو الوقود، fossil fuel الوقود الحفري، generate يعني توليد، conserve يعني حفظ، متجددة يعني renewable، غير متجددة يعني non-renewable، موارد الطاقة المتجددة يعني renewable resource and pollution اللي هو التلوث. Maybe you have heard some of these key vocabulary before, or maybe you have heard some information about them. We will remember this information together by using a strategy called definition ambulation أو جولة بين المصطلحات. Let me show you how we will do it. I prepared here definitions for some vocabulary that we will read together. As you see, these terms are put at different places on the vocabulary wall. I will go to the wall and say a definition, and you will think together of the term for the definition. So, I will move toward it. Are you ready? يلا بينا نبدأ. أنا هقف عند حائط المصطلحات وهقول لكم جملة أو تعريف وأنتوا تخمنوا المصطلح المناسب عشان أتحرك ناحيته. The first definition is harmful materials spread in the air, water, or soil. When these are harmful materials are in the environment, what will this cause? فكروا كده. Right, they cause pollution. So I will move towards pollution. The second definition is different resources that remain like energy. بقاء أو الحفاظ على الطاقة. To keep things all the time with us. We need to do what? فكروا كده في المصطلحات اللي قدامكم. We need to keep them, and this is called conservation أو الحفظ. اتحركت ناحية كلمة conserve. The last definition is about a type of energy that comes from the sun, water, or wind. Do you remember what kind of energy is this? Renewable or non-renewable. ما دي الكلمات اللي فاضلة معانا. Renewable or non-renewable. فكرتوا؟ Exactly. It's renewable energy resource. كده فاضل معانا آخر كلمة non-renewable. كده نكون خلصنا الجيم دي. During our lessons, we will know the difference between renewable and non-renewable energy. الطاقة المتجددة والطاقة الغير متجددة. ما تنسوش تجربوا اللعبة دي مع صحابكم. You can do this strategy in the classroom. After your teacher hangs the vocabulary in different places, choose a group of your classmates. When the teacher says the definition, anyone knows the word that expresses the definition will run quickly to it. I'm sure it will be an interesting strategy to learn new vocabulary. Now, open your student book on page 27 to start the first activity. We will start with, can you explain? Can you explain question to where you use your previous knowledge to answer the question, which is, where does the fuel we use every day come from? في أول نشاط هنفكر إيه المعلومات اللي نعرفها عن الوقود؟ وهنبدأ بإننا نفكر إيه مصادر الوقود اللي بنستخدمها. I guess we know different types of fuels. One of them is solid and black. Do you know it? Of course, it's coal. اللي هو الفحم. Also, the fuel we use to move the car. فاكرين؟ We go to the gas station and put it in the car engine. When it burns, it helps a car to move. فاكرين اسم الوقود ده كان إيه؟ Yes, exactly. It's called gasoline. Another type we use at home to power the cooker, اللي هو البوتاجاز اللي احنا بنطبخ عليه. Yes, it is the natural gas. Have you thought before, where do all types of fuel come from? Look at the chart that we used before. We used it before to explain the energy chain. It will remind us of where coal come from. فاكرين لما اتكلمنا عن سلسلة تحول الطاقة قلنا إن الفحم بيتكون إزاي؟ Look at the sun. The sun is the source of energy we started with. The sun gives the plant the light energy to grow. After that, trees become dry, then die, and they are buried under the ground for millions of years ago. For millions of years ago, coal then is formed from the remains of these plants and trees. يبقى الفحم اتكون من بقايا النباتات والأشجار اللي دبلت واتدفنت لملايين السنين في باطن الأرض. What about the natural gas? Where did it come from? فكرتوا بقى ازاي الغاز الطبيعي بيتكون؟ فكرتوا احنا درسنا ايه في مادة المهارات المهنية؟ Noha is a student at my class. She said that we studied in career skills about workers at the gas refinery in the West Desert in Egypt. Desert? I think natural gas come from the ground. صح. نهى قالت في عمال بيشتغلوا في مصفات غاز في الصحراء الغربية في مصر وبتعتقد إن هم بيستخرجوا الغاز الطبيعي برضو من باطن الأرض. Now you can write your answers to the main question on page 27. Use all the information we talked about. It's fine if your answer is simple. We will still learn new ideas in this concept. Just to remind you, it's okay to write I think, which means that you are still not sure. As Noha said, I think natural gas is taken out from under the ground. Marwa wrote, I think gasoline is taken out from petrol and we get petrol out of the ground. This is okay because we will have the chance to collect evidence to see if we are right or not. Now, let's explore more about fuel in the second activity, Ask Like a Scientist. The title of this activity is Fuels and Road Trips. في النشاط ده، النشاط اسمه الوقود والرحلات على الطريق. هنعرف أكتر عن مصادر الوقود. We will read a story on page 28 about Hani who had traveled in a trip with his family. So, let's go to the science textbook. Hani's family's trip is related to a type of fuels we talked about. Let's read the story and underline any sentences related to this type of fuels. Also, write any questions you think about. ما تنسوش وانتوا بتقروا تحطوا خط تحت الجمل اللي بتتكلم عن أي نوع وقود اتكلمنا عنه، وكمان ممكن تكتبوا أسئلة تساعدنا إن احنا نفهم أكتر. Now, I'll tell you the questions that my students wrote to see how they focus on that type of fuel. Iman wrote, why did the car stop during the trip? The car stopped because it was running out of fuel, which is gasoline. It provides the car with the needed energy to move when it's burnt in the engine. This means that gasoline is a type of fuel that make the car moves. يعني البنزين هو الوقود اللي بيدي الطاقة للعربية ويشغلها، ولو خلص العربية هتقف. Ahmed asked about gasoline. What is gasoline? How does it look like? Is gasoline solid or liquid? Gasoline we use in cars is a transparent liquid. It has a strong smell. You can smell it near gas stations. البنزين سائل شفاف، وأظن معظمكم أخد باله إن البنزين ليه ريحة قوية جدا ونفاذة. Gasoline is flammable. It means if you put fire or light a match beside it, it will burn easily. Therefore, in a gasoline station, you see a red sign near of it. This means it's really dangerous. بما إن البنزين قابل للاشتعال، هنلاقيه دايماً علامة حمراء في محطات البنزين بتوضح إن في خطورة كبيرة. How can we know that there is no gasoline in the car? Right, by looking at the gauge. معظمكم شاف مؤشر البنزين اللي بيبقى في لوحة القيادة. The gauge is in the driver's dashboard. It helps the driver know that gasoline level is down in the car and he needs to supply it with gasoline. Cars and trucks go to gas stations to get gasoline using the pump you see now. It's like a hose that pulls gasoline from a big tank to put it in the car tank. When the car is filled with gasoline, the gauge moves to the right. مؤشر البنزين بيوضح كمية البنزين، ولو البنزين قل بنحتاج نروح لمحطة البنزين، وبيستخدموا مضخة بتسحب البنزين من تانك كبير تحت الأرض. What happens to fuel when it goes into the car? Let's read this part of the story together. Focus on the questions that Hani asked. This will help in writing your questions about fuels. When fuels or gasoline gets into the car, it burns inside the engine. This helps the engine move the wheels. Without fuel, the car cannot move, so no gas, no movement. As Hani asked, can we power the car with sunshine? We talked about cars that move with solar energy in term 1. Do you remember? We said this has advantages and disadvantages. Cars that move by solar energy needs a certain design that might be expensive. Also, there is no sun at night to move the car. However, Hannah's idea is useful because these types of cars do not get out smoke, so this protects the environment. في العربيات العادية البنزين بيتحرق جوه الموتور وبيخلي العربية تتحرك. وما تنسوش اننا قلنا في الترم الاول ان ممكن نستبدل البنزين بالطاقة الشمسية واتكلمنا عن مميزاتها وعيوبها. Sure, you have many questions about fuels. You can write them in your science book on page 30. Start with question words like when, where, or why. And you may use the questions that Hani asked. This story reminded many of my students when they were traveling and their cars stopped on the road. They thought like Hani about different questions like, are there any other fuels rather than gasoline? What are other uses of gasoline? What are the other types of fuels that are less harmful for the environment? What is the source of gasoline? Sure, you also wrote questions about different types of fuels. Now, we need to evaluate all the information we have about different types of fuels and their sources. We will do this in activity 3. Let's go and try this one. Activity 3, Evaluate Like a Scientist, is titled, What do you already know about fuels? Open the student book on page 31. Look carefully at the 4 pictures in the activity. They are pictures of different types of fuels. The first picture shows the gasoline pump in a gas station. Also, natural gas that powers the cooker at home. The other 2 pictures show coal and wood. You need to choose a type of fuel and think about 3 things. Its source, where does it come from? Its way of use, how is it used as a source of energy. عشان نعرف ازاي بنستخدمه كمصدر للطاقة في حاجة لازم نعملها أو نرسمها الأول. فاكرين كان اسمها إيه؟ Yes, it is the energy chain. The energy chain we need to draw. I will choose coal to do together and will leave the rest for you. Let's start. What is the source of coal? فاكرين قلنا إيه عن مصدر الفحم؟ We said that coal is formed from the remains of plants millions of years ago. They got dry and were buried under the ground. Over time, these plants start to form coal. What can we use coal for? People use coal for heating because when we burn it, it generates heat. If you search on the internet, you will find other uses. طيب, what is coal used for as a source of energy? Let's draw the energy chain for coal on the board. For example, when it's used for heating or cooking. What is the main source of energy we will start with? دايما بنبدأ سؤالنا إيه هو مصدر الطاقة الرئيسي؟ Yes, the sun. So we will start with the sun. The sunlight goes to, yes, it goes to plants and trees to give them light energy. So I will make an arrow and write light energy. When the light energy reaches the plants, these plants make their own food. طب فاكرين الأكل بتاع البلانتس كان جواه نوع energy اسمه إيه؟ Yes, it contains chemical energy. So I will write here chemical energy. These trees got dry and died. They were buried under the ground for millions of years. From these remains, coal was formed. Then we take it out to use as a fuel. Coal has energy stored in it, which is chemical energy. Chemical energy اللي كانت متكونة في البلانت هتفضل متخزنة فيه لحد ما يتكون الفحم. Why chemical energy? Go back to how coal is made. It's made of plants, and the stored energy in plants is chemical energy. When we burn coal, it produces out thermal energy. So, the chemical energy will be changed into thermal energy. So, the input is light energy and the output is thermal or heat energy. يعني بدأنا بالطاقة الضوئية وبعدين الطاقة الكيميائية وانتهينا بالطاقة الحرارية اللي هي الأوتبوت. Now take your time to answer the rest and when you come back I'll tell you what my students say. Now I'll tell you Minna, Dina and Farah answers of the 3 types of fuels. Minna chose gasoline. She thinks it's taking out of oil. Oil means petrol under the ground. طب البترول ده بيتكون ازاي؟ It's formed from living organisms that died millions of years ago. What is it used for? We use it to power trucks, cars, and devices that have engines. How can we use it as a source of energy? عشان نفهم استخدامه كمصدر للطاقة يبقى لازم نرجع لسلاسل تحولات الطاقة للبنزين. Minna explains the chain of energy transformations for gasoline. She started with the sun, which gives light energy. Light energy to whom? To the plants. After that, the animals eat plants. Plants help animals store chemical energy in their bodies. So we come to chemical energy. Animals die and got buried under the ground for millions of years. Then oil was formed. نفس فكرة سلسلة الطاقة للفحم، بس المرة دي الحيوانات هي اللي هتاكل النباتات، ولما الحيوانات تموت وتدفن لملايين السنين هتتحلل ويتكون النفط. Then we can use the chemical energy stored inside it. Also in laboratories, gasoline is extracted out of it. What is the result of burning gasoline? Yes, different types of energy like kinetic energy that make the car runs. وقبل كده كمان قلنا إن ممكن يتحول للايت انرجي اللي بتبقى في كشافات العربية أو ساوند انرجي اللي بنستخدمها في الراديو. Let's see the picture that Dina chose. It's natural gas. Do you know the source of natural gas? Dina thinks that natural gas is formed of dead animals buried under the ground for millions of years. What is it used for? It's used to power the cooker, as it gives heat. We use it for cooking. There are other uses for natural gas. How we use it for energy? We start with the sun. لازم دايما نبتدي بالsun. That gives light energy as food for living things. Then they die and were buried millions of years ago. When we take it out, it has stored chemical energy. If we use it for cooking, we will have thermal and light energy. If we use it to power devices, we will have also kinetic energy and thermal energy. سلسلة تحول الطاقة للغاز الطبيعي أكيد سهل عليكم جدا، لأن هو بيستخرج برضو من باطن الأرض أو من قاع المحيطات، وبيتكون من بقايا الكائنات الحية زي النفط بالظبط اللي بيكون الجازولين. And now we have the last picture that Farah chose. It is wood. Farah said the source of wood is trees. She was in a camp before and they burned some pieces of wood to feel warm. She observed easily that wood is used to generate heat or to produce thermal energy, to make us feel warm and to cook. What about its energy chain? Of course, the sun gives the light energy to the trees as the food. Then wood from trees is cut down and used for different things. If we burn it, we will have thermal energy and also it will give us light energy. أسهل سلسلة تحول طاقة هي الخشب. بنبدأ بالشمس اللي هتدي طاقة ضوئية للنباتات، وبعد كده ممكن نقطع الخشب ونتدفى بيه ونحرقه. ولو ركزتوا الخشب هو نوع الوقود الوحيد اللي مش بنجيبه من باطن الأرض. Now we have finished all the pictures for the types of fuel. You can see the wood is the only fuel that is not taken from under the ground. And this is very, very important information. Now we come to the end of our lesson. Let's review the main points together. At the beginning, we thought about can you explain question, different sources and types of fuels. We also wrote questions that will help us collect evidence to finally answer the questions scientifically. We evaluated our knowledge of some types of fuels like coal, natural gas, and wood. We thought about their sources and how they are used as a source of energy. One of the key vocabularies we learned is fuels. Let me put it. The definition of fuel is any substance used to give energy. الوقود هي أي مادة تستخدم لتوليد الطاقة. Till we meet again, you need to think about types of fuels that we explored today. Are all of them fossil fuels? And are there any other types of fuels around us? حضروا نفسكم للدرس اللي جاي ودوروا على باقي أنواع الوقود وفكروا إيه هو الوقود الحفري. Thank you and see you next time.